Hi there, good afternoon and welcome to Mutual Fund Corner. I'm Mangla Malu. With me is Sumaira Abdi in the Mutual Fund Corner. This is the show where we answer all your mutual fund related queries. But before we do that, a quick look at the markets. We've come off the highs of the day, pretty close to the 100-day moving average of the Nifty, 840 thereabouts. And let's see whether that level would be seen as a support or not. However, individual stocks, they're buzzing around. The pharmaceutical index not doing too well. So we have Sun Pharma, which is at the low point of the day. And what's also adding some pressure to the Nifty is the heavyweight ITC, which is currently at the lows of the day. We're awaiting numbers from heavyweights like Reliance and HUL, an eye on that. But mid-cap space, while it is underperforming right now, our ticker team tells us Jet Airways, that stock is 8% off lows. A lot of news flow around that counter. We will keep an eye out on individual stocks and markets, but before that, we toss it across to Sumaira for answering all your mutual fund queries.
Mangalam, thanks very much for that. Joining me this afternoon in the Mutual Fund Corner, I have Anand Dalmia, the co-founder at Fisdom. Hi, Anand. Thanks very much for joining me. And, you know, we have a lot of queries actually coming through, but given that the, flows into mutual funds had been tapering off, one would imagine that, there isn't so much interest. But I'm quite enthused to see that people are quite keen to invest. Perhaps they are delaying their investments a little bit. But nevertheless, let's get started. Our first query this afternoon comes in from Abhishek Shetty. He's written to us from Mumbai. And he actually has quite an extensive portfolio. So he has investments in the Aditya Birla Frontline Equity Fund, the ABSL Pure Value, the HDFC Mid-Cap Opportunities Fund, as well as two funds of ICICI Prudential, that's Blue Chip and the Value Fund. So they also, between him and his wife, they also have about a lakh a year investment in the NPS. Their objective is purely wealth creation, and their main goal actually looks to be retirement. So they're in their mid-30s right now, so that's about what you'd say another 30 years away. The main thing he's looking for is that whether or not the portfolio is actually in line, and the target amount that they have in mind is about 7.5 crores, which they're looking for in about 20-25 years old.
Sure. So I would say, firstly, I think they're starting at the right time for a retirement corpus. They have 20 years. The portfolio or the choice of funds that they've invested looks pretty interesting. However, I can't but notice that a couple of the funds have an overlap, like, the two Birla funds have the same fund manager. So there is a bias that the same fund manager has. So I would suggest a change rather than continuing with the same fund. I think NPS is a great option because it gives you tax, you can save tax beyond your ATC. So there's a 50,000 each. So that is great. However, the two things, which is not in the question and something for them to consider. One is 7.5 crores sufficient? Because if you look at 20-30 years down the line, and if I were to discount it like 7-8%, I think it should be around like a crore and a half. So someone who's investing together more than a lakh, I think a crore and a half in today's term, is that the right amount in terms of their corpus? Secondly, I would say that they just need to have probably a term insurance to make sure that either one of them something happens. Last, I would say is that if their tenure on the 5 funds that they shared is like 20 years, then probably they can do with a bit more of mid-cap. So it's largely large cap. I think mid-cap out of that portfolio is around 20-25%. Probably go up to 50% to get that alpha. I think otherwise, it's great. I'm good to see people planning their retirement doing mutual funds.
Okay, and the other thing is, Anand, that he wants to actually know which is the best way to track return. So he says he's confused between, following the annualized returns. So what's a good tracker sort of for it?
Look, I have a bias there. I would say Fisdom app is the best place. But, generally people get confused because, some people use different nomenclatures. Someone would say IRR, someone would say annualized returns, someone would say CAGR. I think all these nomenclatures are the same. I think most of the apps that are there today, including Fisdom, we give CAGR. So, they can use any of those apps and so including Fisdom and see the returns.
Okay, up next, our query is from Rohan Agarwal, and he's on the line with us from Chhattisgarh. Rohan, hi, good afternoon. How can we help you?
गुड आफ्टरनून मैम। मैम मैंने एक क्वेरी आपको एक ईमेल की थी मेरी
जी।
उसमें मैम मैंने जो 6 फंड्स में इन्वेस्ट किया हुआ है, जिसमें आदित्य बिरला 96 में 3000 रुपीज, वो मैंने लास्ट 1 ईयर से किए हैं। बाकी जो अदर 5 फंड्स है वो मैं लास्ट मंथ से कर रहा हूँ मैम।
और ओके, तो आपके पास 6 फंड्स हैं, मिराय एसेट इमर्जिंग ब्लू चिप, पराग पारिक लॉन्ग टर्म फंड, एसबीआई ब्लू चिप, आदित्य बिरला टैक्स 96, आईडीएफसी टैक्स सेवर और एसबीआई स्मॉल कैप। इसमें इन सब फंड्स में आपकी एसआईपी ऑनगोइंग है, राइट?
हाँ, ऑनगोइंग है मैम। एक जो है आदित्य बिरला 96 को 1 साल से, बाकी जो है लगभग पिछले महीने से ही मैंने स्टार्ट किया मैम, अकॉर्डिंग मतलब कुछ न्यूज चैनल्स और साइट्स के थ्रू। बट मैं उसको एक बार फिर से मैं देखना चाह रहा था कि क्या मैंने सही है
और ये आपने इन्वेस्टमेंट किस ऑब्जेक्टिव के लिए शुरू किया है?
मैम फिलहाल आई एम अ बैचलर पर्सन, तो ऐसा कोई गोल फिलहाल नहीं है, बट फॉर अ लॉन्ग टाइम, स्पेशली फॉर रिटायरमेंट, जो लगभग मेरे 30 साल से ज्यादा का समय बचा हुआ है, और इन फ्यूचर अगर फैमिली तो नीड के लिए वो मिनिमम 20 इयर्स के लिए मैं इन्वेस्ट करना चाह रहा हूँ मैम, कुल मिलाकर।
Okay. All right, Anand, here's a question for you, and I'd appreciate if you could answer in Hindi if possible. So he has about 10,000-11,000 rupees which he's investing as an SIP every month. One, of course, is that enough to keep him on track, considering that his time horizon is 20 years? He doesn't have a goal in terms of how much he wants to accumulate, but does it look okay, and does he need to rework his funds a little bit?
So रोहन, आपने जिन फंड्स में इन्वेस्ट किया है वो सारे फंड्स काफ़ी अच्छे हैं। गिवन कि आपको 15-20 साल आपके पास हैं इन्वेस्ट करने के लिए, मेरे हिसाब से सारे फंड काफ़ी अच्छे हैं, आप इनमें कंटिन्यू कर सकते हैं। आप एक चीज़ आप ध्यान रखें कि अगर आपको टैक्स बचाना है, जो 80C का टैक्स होता है 1.5 लाख रुपए का, तो आप आज के दिन आपके फंड्स के थ्रू आप वो 1.5 लाख कवर नहीं कर रहे हैं। तो या तो आप एग्जिस्टिंग कोई बंद करके पूरा कोशिश करें कि आप 1.5 लाख कवर करें। मुझे पता नहीं अगर आपने कोई इंश्योरेंस या और कुछ लिया है, बट अगर आपने नहीं लिया है तो आप कोशिश करके अपना फंड किसी एक ELSS फंड में मूव कीजिए, ताकि आपको पूरा टैक्स से बेनिफिट मिले। दूसरा, जैसे जैसे आप बड़े होते जाएं और आपकी इनकम बढ़ती जाए, आप कोशिश कीजिए कि आपका जो इंक्रीमेंटल सेविंग है उसको भी आप म्यूचुअल फंड में डालें, ताकि आप अपना रिटायरमेंट कॉर्पस आराम से बना पाएँ, एंड यू कैन सारे आपके जो गोल्स हैं आप अचीव कर पाएँ।
ओके, रोहन, और कोई सवाल?
सर मैं जानना चाह रहा हूँ कि फंड जो है 6 हैं वो ज्यादा तो नहीं है क्या, उसमें कुछ कमी की जरूरत है, या कोई फंड स्पेशली स्मॉलर कैप, क्योंकि सब नेगेटिव जा रहा है फिलहाल, तो कोई चेंज करके कोई मल्टी कैप में अगर मुझे कन्वर्ट करने की जरूरत है क्या, बैलेंस फंड या मल्टी कैप लेने की, इनमें से कोई क्लोज करके?
रोहन, फंड सारे बहुत अच्छे हैं। सी लास्ट 1 साल में क्या हुआ है कि इंडेक्स ने करीब 6-7% का रिटर्न दिया है, बट मिड कैप्स थोड़े नेगेटिव रहे हैं। बट बिकॉज आपने कहा कि आपके पास 15-20 साल है, आई वुड से कि इनमें अगर आप रेगुलर पैसा अगर आप डालते रहें तो आपका रिटर्न काफ़ी अच्छा होगा। सो आपको कंटिन्यू करना चाहिए इन फंड्स के साथ। एंड 1 साल काफ़ी छोटा पीरियड है, हर 2-3 साल में इन फंड्स का आप एक बार रिव्यू कीजिए। अगर कोई फंड किसी वजह से अच्छा नहीं कर रहा है तब आपको उसको देखना चाहिए, बट अभी आई थिंक ये जितने सारे फंड आपने नाम बताए हैं ये काफ़ी अच्छे फंड्स हैं।
ओके रोहन, तो आई होप कि अब हम बात करेंगे 3 साल बाद। Thanks very much for calling. Up next, V. Sankar has written to us from Andhra Pradesh. So he's 48 years old. He already has a house that he owns. He has savings of 8 lakhs as well. Now, he can save up to 30,000 rupees a month, or rather invest it. He has a couple of goals in mind. One is his daughter's marriage, which is 7 years from now, for which he needs 25 lakhs. Another is his son's education, which is 3 years from now, for which he needs about 10 lakhs. So a bit of okay, never mind. He's also planning his retirement, which is 12 years from now, for which he needs a regular income of 20,000 rupees a month. So I don't think 30,000 is going to cut it. I mean, is he falling short? And where does he invest?
So essentially, I would say, the first thing that comes to my mind is when he says I need 20,000 rupees a month after 12 years. I think sometimes we forget that 20,000 rupees after 12 years is like 6,000-7,000 rupees today. Someone who can say that I can save 30,000 rupees a month, is 6,000 sufficient for you at that point of time? That's the first question. Second is your near-term goal, which is your son's education, is like 10 lakhs that you need in 3 years. So your ability to choose the funds which give you higher returns, the returns come with risk, right? So you can best put it in a balanced advantage fund and expect a 9-10% returns. But 30,000 itself, I don't think is sufficient for him to get there. However, I would say the best is start with 20 to 25,000 in a balanced advantage fund, because your son's education goal is very nearby. The remaining money put in a multi-cap fund because your daughter is 7 years away. And as your income grows, today you can do 30,000. As your income grows, try and invest more and more in a steeper manner, given that you don't have a lot of savings from the past to achieve your goals. I probably have a lateral idea for you as well. Try and get your son a education loan and get him to pay himself, because I think retirement is extremely important, and given that you just have a very small corpus today, that is something you need to take care of.
That's right. So, Shankar, a lot for you to actually think about, but we hope that you do take Anand's advice. All of our viewers actually navigate through their investment issues. So up next, a query comes in from Shrikant C. He's written to us from Bengaluru. So he's 42 years old and he has invested in a couple of mutual funds, which is the HDFC Top 100, where he has chosen the growth option. He has an SIP ongoing, DSP Top 100, Aditya Birla Sun Life Focused Equity Fund, the ICICI Prudential Credit Risk Fund, as well as the HDFC Children's Gift Fund. So all of these are where he has SIPs ongoing of about 3,000 to 4,000 rupees odd a month. His time horizon is 15 years. He hasn't mentioned how much he's looking to accumulate or what he intends to do with that money, but I'm assuming that it's retirement, given that he's already 42. Once again, you'll be heartened to see another query of somebody who wants to plan their retirement, but I'm not, it's a little late for him to start, but nevertheless, what would you advise him? Is he on the right track?
I would say largely on the right track. There are two things probably he can change. One is, if his horizon is 15 years, to do an SIP of a credit risk fund, which is essentially a debt fund, doesn't make sense. So if that is for...
And coming on the heels of 2018.
Coming on the heels of 2018 in a credit risk fund. So I would suggest if that is done to reduce the overall risk of the portfolio, then he can look at a balanced advantage fund. It's more tax efficient and probably higher returns. I personally like the HDFC Children Gifts Fund. All these gift funds for the kids, I'm not a big fan of them, because the corpus of the corpus of most of these funds is sub 3,000 crores, and we always recommend that if you are if you have the discipline and you know that you are in it for the next 15 years, might as well move that money to a mid cap, or because you have 15 years, move it to a multi cap or a mid cap. It will give him higher returns. So today a lot of his portfolio for 15 years is in top 100 or is in credit risk and children fund, which is largely, I would say, large cap and credit risk. He needs to stop this credit risk thing and move more money towards mid cap and small cap, so that he can get that alpha. Given his tenure is 15 years, I think that will help him with the amount that he's saving, help him reach his goals. The other thing is, as I keep saying, if you want to save tax, a lot of these guys, I don't know tax planning, but he can start a ESS fund so that he can maximize his ATC of 1.5 lakhs.
All right, Mr. Shrikant, I hope you've taken Anand's advice, and don't always go by the slick packaging. You have to see what the product does for you and where it actually fits in your portfolio. On that note, we need to wrap up on MF Corner. Anand, thanks very much for dropping by and for advising all our viewers.
It's a pleasure.
We're recovering from the lows for our market, almost back in the green for the Nifty as we speak. In fact, it is in the green by 1 point, and what's leading it higher? We have Axis Bank, a sharp spike seen on Axis Bank. Along with that, we have some heavyweights contributing as well. We have HDFC as well as UPL. But from the broader markets, can't keep your eye away from Jet Airways, 10% higher on that stock, recovered about 15% from the lows. With that, we wrap up on this edition of Mutual Fund Corner. But as we do that, here's a quick guide on what close-ended funds are. Stay tuned, and on the other side, there'll be closing bell.